Hello and welcome. I am the Restless Kaiser, and we are modelling for advantage. So today we're having a look at WARCRY Nighthaunts expansion pack for the new Sigmar skirmish game, WARCRY. Let's get this pack open. A bit tricky these things, I have to say. I don't do so well with it. Probably should have brought a pair of scissors. So there's a second one of these. I'm going to have a look at all of the undead ones over the next few weeks, I think. That's the kind of fantasy army. So these are essentially just a card pack. There's no dice, there's no tokens. It's just a set of cards for enabling you to play miniatures from existing Sigmar armies, perhaps. So, the first type of cards that you get. This is like your War Scroll card, which shows the figures that are available to you and the particular power-ups that are available to those figures. You get these in a range of different languages, which is why there's so many cards here. Various different languages, French and German I can see. A couple of Oriental languages that I don't recognise, mostly because I'm ignorant. So that's these guys. So we can see with these that you can play the Chainrasp Dread Warden, the Grimghast Reaper, the Chainrasp, the Spirit Host, the Glaive Wraith Stalker, and the Extoller Shyish. So, what do these guys do? Well, they have a series of abilities. The first one, on double, the Aura of Dread. Pick a visible enemy fighter within a number of inches of this fighter equal to the value of this ability. So if you've got double 2, it's at range of 2. Until the end of the battle round, subtract 1 from the strength characteristic to a minimum of 1 of attack actions made by that fighter. A fighter can only be targeted once per battle round with this ability. If you've got several models that have this ability, each enemy model can only be affected once. That's not bad. Subtract 1 from the strength characteristic. It's an interesting ability in terms of it reduces the kill potential of your enemies rather than increases your own. And that's like the universal one for this particular warband. The next one, which requires a double, Soul Marked Prey. Pick a visible enemy fighter within 3 inches of this fighter with 1 or more damage points allocated, so only wounded models, until the end of the battle round. Add 1 to the strength characteristic of attack actions made by friendly fighters that target that fighter. A fighter cannot be picked to target this ability more than once per battle round. So again, you can only target somebody once with this, but this enables you to do extra damage or certainly fight with a high strength characteristic against people who are already damaged. That's going to help your weak chain rasps and so forth actually perform. So the first triple, Frightful Touch. Until the end of this fighter's activation, count each hit from attack actions made by them as critical hits instead. Well, that's pretty good, because we look at the fighter cards in a moment, you'll see there's a big difference between the damage you do on a hit or a crit. Okay, the fourth capability. This is a double again rather than a triple, so we don't necessarily work through from doubles up to quads. Chilling Horde. A fighter can use this ability only if they're a visible friendly fighter with the minion rune mark within 3 inches of them. Add 1 to the attack characteristics of attack actions made by this fighter until the end of their activation. So the minions are probably the chain rasps. And so that's going to be important for keeping the chaff models with your more powerful fighters for helping them out. Then we have the triple, which is the Spectral Summon. Pick a friendly fighter that has been taken down. Set up that fighter once more on the battlefield, wholly within 3 inches of this fighter. The fighter set up on the battlefield no longer counts as being taken down. Remove a number of damage points allocated to that fighter equal to the value of this ability. So in missions where you have to score by killing enemy models, this is the Resurrect ability, isn't it? Raise the Dead type thing. This is going to really help with those missions, especially if you've got a lot of weaker models, I think, which give up easy points all too often in these kind of games. And then the final one, the quad, Reaped Like Corn. Allocate a number of damage points equal to the value of this ability to all visible enemy fighters within 3 inches of this fighter. That could potentially do a lot of damage. I mean, if you had a quad 5 and you've got 4 enemy models trying to beat up on your leader or something, you pump out a lot of damage with that ability. Interesting. So, those were the abilities. Let's have a look at the fighter cards then. And as we're looking at the fighter cards, we'll show you some stills at the end of these so you can look at them in more detail. So, to begin with, we have these two cards. If you've not seen them before, these are quite handy little things. What you do with these is if you've got multiple versions of a particular fighter, you tuck that under there so you can track status effects separately, having only one copy of each of the fighter cards. It takes something like a chain rasp. You're probably going to have a fair few of these. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You could do that. Alright, so that's what these are for. There's 3 on one side and 6 on the other. So with the fighter cards, starting from probably the most chaff. So the chain rasp comes out at 80 points, which isn't cheap. And so it's not expensive, but skeleton spearmen, for example, were 55. So these guys are quite fast though. They move 5, which is not bad for a basic infantry model at all. They have 4 toughness and 8 wounds. They attack at range of 1, with 3 attacks at strength 3, doing 1/2 damage. So some of these abilities about automatic crits, this is not the guy to use that on. 3 attacks at strength 3, but toughness 4 makes them pretty resilient for a weak model. So then we are looking at the Glaive Wraith Stalker. So this guy, I'm just looking at the rune mark. This guy doesn't have any of those abilities except the Aura of Dread, just the first one, because he doesn't have the rune mark. Again, he's got the minion mark though. So this guy, because he's got a spear, is fighting at a range of 2. He has strength 3, 3 attacks at strength 3, and does 1/3 damage. He moves 5, is toughness 5, and has 10 models. So it seems that they're kind of emulating that ethereal nature of these guys by giving them a fairly high toughness for their model count. Next up, should have had these the other way around. This is the Ghast Reaper, 135 points. This guy does have a rune mark. These all look so similar, so I need to just double check. This has got the Soul Marked Prey ability, which is also the Reap Like Corn ability. So again, he's going to attack at a range of 2, with 3 attacks at strength 3, doing 1 and 4 damage. He's got 6 movement, 5 toughness, and 10 wounds. So for a 135 point model, he's a bit brittle in the wound count, but high in the toughness count. But this guy, with 4 damage on a crit, is going to potentially be really good for some of these automatic crit attacks that we saw earlier. And this fella here then is the Dread Warden. The Dread Warden is 150 points. He's got the Spectral Summon ability, so this is the guy with the Raise Dead capability, and he also has the Chilling Horde, which is the add 1s to attacks characteristics. So he's again got 5 move, 4 toughness, but 16 wounds, and he fights at range 1. So he doesn't hit you with this candelabra, he hits you with his sword. 3 attacks at strength 3, but a flat 2 and damage and 4 on a crit. That's a bit more capable. 150 point model. We then have the Extoller of Shayish coming in. He's the guy with a bell on a stick. 195 points. That is a lot of points. 6 move though, so he's swift, 5 toughness, 20 wounds. 20 wounds. He can fight at a range of 2 with that sweeping stick. He has 3 attacks, 3 damage, 3 strength, that are 2/4. And he has those same 2 abilities, which were the Soul Marked Prey, which is do it +1 strength if you're fighting somebody who's wounded, and the Reap Like Corn, so he can do that sweep attack. And the Spirit Host then, again moves 5, has 5 toughness and 30 wounds. He fights at a range of 1, but has 6 attacks at strength 3 that do 1 and 4 damage. So being able to guarantee crits on this guy will kick out some serious damage. Now his rune mark, Frightful Touch. This is the guy who gets the guaranteed crits. And if he does 4 damage on crits, That's pretty monstrous. Pretty monstrous. How does all that fit together? And how do I feel about this set in general? Well, it's a little bit disappointing in some ways. In the range of models that are available is fairly limited. There's several monsters within this force in Sigmar that are not here. I find some of the choices a little bit odd, to be honest. I would have liked to have seen the Briar Queen in here from Underworlds, because I think she's characterful, whereas these seem a bit devoid of character. I have got some of these models. I am going to be putting this warband together, but it's going to require a bit more time because I need to paint them. So the army's fast, it's fairly resilient, it lacks the really cheap models, although at 8 points the chain rasps are not going to be too bad. It's got some great abilities, but they're spread out on very specific models, and I suspect to have a balanced force you need most of these models, really. But that was the Nighthaunts for Warcry. Stills are up next. Thank you for watching.